G'day. Well, plenty of viewers commenting about the British bias on the Sky broadcast. Did you watch it? I'll go into detail in a second. Well, this topic does come up a lot. British bias on the telecast. A couple of things briefly. Sky does not control the pitches. F1 gives everybody the same pitches. Yes, Sky puts their own commentators in, but they don't have control of that feed. And a lot of comments saying, no more shots of Lando's mum. Where's the shots of Nicole, Oscar's mum? Once again, Sky can't control what F1 gives them. And F1, to be fair, is a British organisation. So maybe it's F1 that has the bias and not Sky. But on the subject of the mums, and I'm talking Siska and Nicole, I love this shot here where Oscar goes to his mum, gives her a hug, and you've got lovely Siska next door enjoying that moment with them. And then Oscar then went up and gave his dad a hug. His mum and dad aren't together anymore, they have separate partners. But it was nice that he went to both parties, caught up with them, and then later on Lando came over and gave his mum a hug here. It was a couple of seconds late on the shot. But getting back to that British bias, if Australia didn't take the British feed, if the US didn't take the British feed, there'd be no complaints really, because they're a British network. They are going to support their own drivers. Perhaps they're a bit over supportive. Can you forgive them for that? Some of you can't, I know. Now, thanks to Holofly for sponsoring this video and keeping me connected here in Belgium. Slow, unreliable internet is not only frustrating, it's simply not an option for me when I'm at the track. That's why I have a Holofly eSIM. I can stream content, post F1 updates in real time, and enjoy constant contact with my team back in Perth. Whether I'm in Belgium or one of the other 200 destinations serviced by Holofly, I have access to unlimited data, fast 4G and 5G speeds, and 24/7 tech support. And when I arrived in Belgium, I hit the ground running. But I wasn't slowed down by the eSIM installation process, as it was all done in just a couple of minutes. Plus, there's no roaming fees, and I can choose the length of my plan to suit my stay. Get Holofly's unlimited eSIM deal now and stay connected wherever you go. Click on the link in the description below, or use the promo code KimIlman at the checkout. Just up the road here is a very large billboard featuring the British driver. Well, actually, he's British Belgium, isn't he? His mum, Siska, is from this part of the world. And interestingly, and I don't think you would know this, she wasn't staying at a hotel here. She was camping in a tent. And after the race, she got changed into overalls and rode her bike back to her campsite. She is a lovely lady, as is Nicole, and you might have seen this picture of Nicole and Yuki. Funny story there too. Her partner Tim said to me, Kim, can you quickly grab a shot of Yuki and Nicole, which I got a few snaps off here and put that post up. And I think it was my most popular post of the weekend because she has a real thing for Yuki. They get on famously, and that was the first time that they'd met. But it wasn't the only time over the weekend because Red Bull said, Yuki would like to have a chat with you. Can you come up to the hospitality suite? That's what she did. She joined him for, I think, about 10 minutes and they chatted and he gave her a present. I can't remember what she said, but it's a lovely relationship and certainly you guys thought that was a lovely thing to see on social media. And congratulations to her son for his magnificent win. He managed to stave off an attack from Lando late in the race. After the race, I saw him sign this bottle. You might remember, I think in Barcelona, he signed the bottle to his sister Edie. This bottle, I zoomed in on my photo and found out he'd dedicated this to his granddad, Hugh, who's from Melbourne and was at the track. He goes to one race a year. And what happened to that champagne bottle?
I have it here. Indeed, this is the one that Oscar signed after his 2025 Belgian GP. And in fact, it's made out to his grandfather, Hugh.
You need to come to races more often.
Well, if he's paying, I'll come.
Just like in Barcelona, Oscar said, look, can you take that back to Australia? Because that's a full Jeroboam of champagne. What is it? 3+ litres of alcohol. It's heavy.
With this bottle and the box, it is 10 kilos, and we've got to get it home.
Well, it cost Nicole a couple of €100 to get that air freighted back to Australia. And I know that this bottle too will have to be doing another journey just like the other one. But I'd never seen one of these bottles inside the crate. It was beautifully wrapped, as you can see here, and has a nice note, personalised to Oscar.
Dear Oscar, congratulations. We are thrilled to celebrate your extraordinary achievement at the 225 Belgian Grand Prix.
That fits inside this cardboard box and then is hand-delivered back to Australia with Hugh to Melbourne.
Now, I wonder if they have 20 of those notes ready to go, or whether they just print it at the track once they know the winner. But I ended up with my own bottle of Moet and Chandon, which I used just on the grass down here to celebrate my 500,000th YouTube subscriber.
It's nice to celebrate like an F1 driver, and 500,000 followers is no mean feat. And thank you to all those of you who are now subscribed, and if you're not, please subscribe. Thank you too to Jace, to Jack, to Alice, Jade, Michael, Ryan, Tonya, and everyone else at Messages on Hold who helps out.
Now, I'd love to show you the team celebration shot from McLaren after the race, but there wasn't one. Why? Well, Oscar had a plane to catch. Yes, it was a private flight, and you might be thinking, well, if it's a private flight, surely you can go when you want. No, you can't, because on a busy weekend like this one, all of those jets have a slot, and they can't just be ringing up saying, oh, we're just going to go whenever we want. So he had to race off. It left no time for the celebration because we started, an hour late, more than an hour late for that race. Oscar's win yesterday also put him equal with Daniel Ricciardo's 8 wins as a Formula One driver. If he has one more win, and I think he's probably got at least one more in him, he will then equal Mark Webber's record. Mark is his manager. Ollie Bearman, not happy with his record being broken in Sweden. What record? Well, he went karting on a recent holiday. In fact, he spent a good number of days trying to break this course record at this karting track, even going to crazy lengths like taking bits off the kart that weren't necessary in order to make it as light as possible. But very quickly after he'd promoted the fact that he'd broken that record, this fella, Elton, broke the record by, a couple of hundredths of a second. I was dining in the same restaurant as Ollie the other night inside Hotel de la Source, and I caught up with him and said, listen, what are you going to do? This kid's broken your record. To which he responded,
Elton, I want to see you stood on a scale, and we're going to go head-to-head next time I'm in Sweden. Good luck.
So I contacted Elton and asked him to weigh himself.
If you see this, Ollie, I'm a huge fan, and keep up the great work. I hope I'll see you and we can have a head-to-head to see who's the champion of Varberg's go-kart.
Of course, weight is a very big factor in a go-kart because the lighter you are, the faster you go. Then I heard Ollie say on one of the TV interviews yesterday that he's going to return to Sweden and set an even quicker time. Look, I like Ollie. I think he's an amazing young kid. And long-term, you've got to think he's a chance at a seat at Ferrari because he was in their junior program. Why was Lewis Hamilton inside the Mercedes engineering suite? I didn't realise he was in there, but a colleague of mine, a photographer, said, you might want to hang around. Lewis has just gone in. So we did. We waited for a bit, and out came Lewis. I then found out he'd gone to see Kimi Antonelli because Kimi had had a pretty ordinary qualifying the day prior on Saturday, and he needed a bit of support. And Lewis was the man to provide it. So thumbs up to the 7-time world champion for taking the young fella under his wing. Now, still on the subject of Kimi Antonelli, I caught up with his girlfriend, Ellie, at the track. She is a go-karter, and she was with her brother, Danny. He, too, is a go-karter. So there is some real racing blood in that particular trio. Now, this race, the FIA decided to try something new. You might have seen it. The names of each driver, well, the first 3 letters of their name, were on the T-cams. That's the thing that sits above the car. Good idea, I thought at first, but then a lot of you said, at speed, it's of no use. And really, for us as photographers, yes, when we have a sharp shot of a car and it's reasonably close up, we can see it. But to be honest, if you're a punter in the stands and that car's whizzing by at 300 k's an hour, you're probably not going to see the letters written on the side of the T-cam. So I kind of think that once they've had a look at this, it may not be something that they run with. This, as I said, is only a trial, so we'll find out at some point. Those of you who know Ted Kravitz may know that he's got a book coming out very shortly. In fact, you'll see one of my pictures on the front cover. I asked him how long did the audio recording take for the book. He said 4 days to get 10.5 hours worth of content. So I guess if you read that book, it would take you about 10.5 hours to read. Or you can just listen to Ted talk his way through it. What you're looking at here is a picture of the side of the Haas Hospitality Suite. This is a brand new suite that they introduced this year. Well, a little bit of drama on one of the installation days because as they were setting this up, they had an incident and broke something. So there's no glass where this particular panel should have been. And this happens from time to time, and I guess no team is immune from it, or immune to it. But the trouble was, paddock is quite tricky because it's on a slope. And that was pretty much the reason why there was drama taking that off. But it didn't stop any of the guests who were in that motorhome from enjoying themselves over the weekend. You might have seen this post I put up about Jack Doohan over the weekend. He was here as a reserve driver, as was Paul Aaron, 2 reserve drivers at the track for Alpine. Well, I was talking to Jack. In fact, he asked me if I could charge his mobile phone at dinner the other night. So I plugged it in, and he had a look at my laptop. And as you can see here, I've got the names of all the drivers along here. And I did this at the start of the year, and because I've been away and they had the swap with Colapinto, I haven't had a chance to replace it. But he looked down and he actually spotted his name and he said, "Good on you, Kim. Don't get rid of it, don't get rid of it." Well, I probably will when I go back home, but I did think it was quite funny that he had the wherewithal to find that on my laptop. Here's a picture of Stefano Domenicali up the top of the F1 motorhome, which is quite a lavish structure. But have a look at Stefano's desk. On it, he has all of the 10 cars from Lego. I've actually got the 4 big ones that they've done, and then there are a medium-sized cars, but these are all the minis. And then I found this young lady with a headband featuring a number of those cars which she'd made herself. So Lego clearly getting some good value out of their sponsorship with Formula One. Now this was going to be the first race in some 20 plus years that we've not had a Horner at the track. Well, it turns out that wasn't the case because we did have a Horner at the track. It was Guy Horner. I hadn't met Guy before, but a well-known commentator came up to me and said, "I think that's Christian's brother over there." So I did a little bit of research, took the pictures, and sure enough it was. And then later he came over and had a chat. And we had a chat for a few minutes. He told me that he was only staying on Saturday. He actually works in the F1 space, but he was heading back to watch the race on Sunday with his brother Christian. Guy is the younger of the 3 brothers, and the older of the trio is a lawyer who's quite busy at the moment, I understand, with some family matters. And those of you new to the sport, did you know that there is a curfew at Formula One? It only pertains to the mechanics, and they can't come in until, I think, 3 hours before a session on the Friday, Saturday and Sunday. And what they do is hang around out the front of the swipe gates, and then at a certain moments, the gates go green, and they all come in a big flood. This is what it looks like. We'll be doing a Beards of the Paddock post shortly where I pick 10 beards and focus on them. One of the best beards in the paddock is Patrick Harding's. He is the trainer for Alex Albon. I was speaking to Alex's manager the other night, and he said there's a deal actually that Patrick has to make good on. The arrangement was if Alex got P5 or better, Patrick was going to have to dye his beard. Now, you might remember that Alex has in the past dyed his hair. Well, it's now Patrick's turn because Alex did qualify P5 on the weekend, but I think he's also had some other P5s during the year. So, Patrick, you are on notice that this beard here needs to be dyed. And I wonder what colour he'll dye it. He is Irish, so maybe green's an option. This is Valtteri Bottas out in pit lane on Sunday before the race. And I had a chat with him and said, look, I've seen a couple of very strong reports saying that you've already signed with Cadillac. He said, no, I haven't signed with Cadillac, but we are close. Of course, close doesn't mean guaranteed, but I think if I was a betting man, I might have a lazy wager on him being one of the 2 drivers for Cadillac next year. Now, if you're like me, you would not have recognised these 2 gentlemen, and I'll come back to them in a second, but I did recognise this fella, Francis Bourgeois, and I love his stuff about trains. He's the exuberant train spotter. Well, on Friday, all 3 of those gentlemen were at the track. Why? Well, they were filming some stuff for their new show, The Grand Tour. Yes, they have replaced Jeremy Clarkson, Richard Hammond and James May. Getting back to these 2 gentlemen, this is James Engelsman with Thomas Holland, and they are from a YouTube channel called Throttle House. I'd never heard of them, but a lot of you in the comments say they are very good. A few questions about whether Francis is the right sort of person to be replacing one of those 3. But anyway, that'll at some point end up on Amazon Prime. Well, with 1 race to go before the summer break, Oscar Piastri leads Lando Norris by 16 points in the drivers' standings. We have a couple of days off, and then it's off to Budapest for what will be a much warmer and probably drier race than what we had here in Spa. Thank you to all of those 500,000 of you who've subscribed, and if you're not one of the throng, please remedy that by hitting that subscribe button now. And for a whole lot of extra content and stuff, this is where you need to look. Thanks for watching, and stay passionate. I think that might be a tough ask for anyone. You've